Hi, and welcome to Troop 318, Emergency Preparedness class. Today, we're going to discuss why you need to be prepared in any situation. On Saturday, June 5th, 1975, around 7:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, a small leak at the base of the Teton Dam was discovered by engineers near Rexburg, Idaho. This life-altering fact was the start of one of Idaho's most infamous natural disasters. After attempting some emergency measures, the Teton Dam completely collapsed at 11:55 a.m. And by 8 o'clock p.m., the reservoir had completely emptied out onto the Snake River Plain. According to Ancestry.com, 80% of all existing structures were completely destroyed, including homes, businesses, and farms. Tens of thousands of acres were also destroyed and stripped of their topsoil, vital for the farming community around in the surrounding area. On top of that, tens of thousands of families were displaced and without food and water for many weeks. Now, I was a resident of a small town of Ingham, Idaho for most of my childhood. I lived there at the base of a mountain called Mount Bonneville. During the many years I lived there, my family and I were completely snowed in countless times. Many winters, there were 6 to 10 foot snowdrifts that covered the roads with no access in or out. And often it took several days for the county to remove the snow so that we could have access in and out. We had to survive on emergency supplies during that time. And part of these supplies included a 72-hour kit. Every day, people all over the world are faced with emergencies. I would like to submit to you that most people do not or would not know what to grab or to take for survival in an emergency. Please consider this reality. Emergencies are never planned or scheduled. And with this given fact of reality, how will you know what items to bring? Often there's very little time or warning in a sudden event of an emergency. So today I am going to help you realize the importance of a 72-hour kit. First, I will explain the problems of not being prepared in a sudden natural disaster. Next, I will provide the information you need to develop your own solution for these problems. And finally, I will help you understand why my solution is the best plan of action. First, let me explain why you should seriously consider having a 72-hour kit for emergencies. I can't stress enough how much everyone needs to be prepared with a 72-hour kit for basic survival needs. Every day in the news, there are reports of natural disasters happening at a moment's notice. Remember, there is never a scheduled time for an emergency to take place, especially with a natural disaster like a tornado or an earthquake. Even with the current advances in technologies, emergency rescue may be delayed. Sometimes conditions do not warrant access to an area for many days. A 72-hour kit can give each person enough supplies to last for 3 days. Don't fall into the false trap of thinking that most people think that they can grab enough supplies quickly from their cupboards or shelves when an emergency strikes. Let me give you an example of why this truly is false thinking. On Friday, March 11th, 2011, at around 2:45 Japan Standard Time in Tohoku, Japan, a magnitude 9 earthquake and following devastating tsunami came without warning. According to livescience.com, more than 120,000 buildings were destroyed. The number of confirmed deaths to date is 15,894. And more than 2,500 people are still reported missing. As you can see, most victims never even had a chance to evacuate, let alone find supplies for emergencies. Now, going back to the topic of the Teton Dam, there were many victims that had similar, very little warning before the dam had collapsed. In 2018, there were 1,250 tornadoes in the U.S. alone, according to ThorntonWeather.com. And still, hundreds more tornadoes happen worldwide. Recently, a level 5.7 magnitude earthquake occurred in Salt Lake City, Utah. Many structures were slightly damaged, including Angel Moroni's trumpet on top of the Salt Lake Temple. Now, according to the United States Geological Survey, or USGS, they estimate that several million earthquakes happen around the world each year. In fact, their studies show that every 2 days, there's an earthquake that has a strong enough magnitude to be reported. I want to make this point of stark reality, that everyone in this class will face some emergency situation in their lifetime. A time will come when you will need to be ready in a timely manner. Remember, natural disasters don't wait for you to be ready. You will need to be prepared in the worst case scenario for all of your family members. Each person needs to have their own supplies to be portable in a 72-hour kit. This is vitally important, and because you could be separated in a case of an emergency. Now you know the problems and risk of not being prepared. Let me discuss a solution so that you and your family can always be prepared. Surveys tell us that many people feel that they can simply grab what they need from their cupboards or first aid supplies for a survival in an emergency situation. It is true that some supplies can be obtained quickly in the time pressure situation. However, there are some problems with this rationale. One, there is no set time for how long the emergency is going to last. How much do you know to bring? Remember, you need to have enough supplies for each person to sustain for at least 72 hours. Two, it is really hard and time consuming to figure out how much of an item you might need to sustain each person during that time. And three, what happens if you can't find everything? What happens if you don't even have the things that you need? The solution to this problem is making a readily accessible 72-hour kit for each person in your family. The solution is a very simple and effective way to solve this problem. A prepackaged commercial 72-hour kit can be purchased at many online stores or emergency preparedness stores. However, building your own kit is not rocket science and can be relatively simple and inexpensive. A 72-hour kit guide can be found easily online. And try to construct your 72-hour kit so that it's readily available. This kit should be easy to carry, such as a backpack is a perfect example of how easily to carry something like this that I have. This method of survival is so effective, in fact, that volunteer groups are lobbying to have 72-hour kits made available by the government in a case of a disaster. Everything you need to survive is included in one easy-to-carry kit. The kit should contain food, it should contain water, and the kit should contain also first aid supplies in case you're cut or injured. Again, ensure that every person has their own supplies. The possibility of being separated in an emergency is highly possible. 72-hour kits can be made relatively cheap from items around your house, or things like this. It's not really difficult to do. Imagine the possibility of an earthquake disaster in your area. In Idaho, we just had one, in fact, yesterday as I was preparing this speech. It can happen at any time. I want to ask you a serious question. Do you know the natural disasters in your area? I'd like to encourage each of you to research this information for your area and stay informed. A good source of information for potential disasters in your area and around the world can be found online. May I suggest going to a website called the Emergency Disaster and Information Service. This website tells you what's going on in your area and around the world, and the results in your area may surprise you. Taking all this into consideration, If a 72-hour kit is not available, chances of survival could be a matter of life and death. Creating a 72-hour kit for your can be done in an evening with your family. Set up a time with your family to create an individual 72-hour kit, such as a night like family home evening. Monday nights are a perfect time to discuss and create your individual 72-hour kits. Before you start, get all the supplies you need listed on a 72-hour kit checklist. You can get a checklist relatively easy also online at various internet websites. However, I found a really good source on the Church Self-Reliant site. Look for how to make a to-go bag. By following the steps listed on this how to-go bag checklist, you can make a very inexpensive, high-quality kit that contains all the proper essentials that each individual will need to survive. Remember, try to build each kit according to each family member's size and age. Finally, and most importantly, do not forget to teach your family members how to use a 72-hour kit. This often can be disastrous if nothing is taught on how to use each item in your kit. Please consider the solution I have presented for building a 72-hour kit for you and your family. You will be faced with an emergency at some point in your life. Be prepared for any situation. Follow the Scout motto, be prepared. Life is precious, and don't risk losing a life because you chose not to be prepared. Thank you.